Eric, you want to go first?
Sure. I'll model. So yeah, thanks everyone. It's great to see a couple new faces on the call and always a couple of the long timers and many of the long timers as well. So my name is Eric Havel. I work with a group called the Community Resources for Science in the Bay Area, California. We do a lot of teacher training programs and have a lot of resources, so online resources available for teachers around, especially around climate literacy and environmental justice. One big signature project we're working on is along with 10 strands, kind of driving a statewide curriculum, K-12 curriculum for climate change education that'll be open source, basically 20 hours of, or 15 hours of instruction for each grade band, each grade level, K-12. And today we're going to be talking about data and visualization resources and tools. And so I'll pass it over to my colleague, Tracy, who's going to actually speak to this a little bit today. And yeah, just a quick introduction, Tracy, and then we'll go around the room and you can popcorn it to somebody.
Sure, no problem. I'm Tracy Ostrom. I'm at UC Berkeley. And Emily, you and I know each other through the GLOBE program at UCAR. Hi. So I am a GLOBE program coordinator out here in the western part of the states, and I work with teachers and K-12 educators and youth in implementing field science programs in their classrooms. Yeah, so I've been doing this, longtime high school teacher for a number of years prior to this. And I'll pass it over to Frank.
The question becomes which one?
Frank G or Frank N?
Let's go with G.
Let's go with G.
Okay, yeah, I'm Frank Granshaw, and I'm here in Portland, Oregon. Not nearly as snowy as the background that, well, it's not snowy at all. Anyway, yeah, and involved with a number of things. I'm a faculty at Portland State and also a member of the Quaker Earth Care Witness and a number of other groups sort of like that. So what I'm going to do is Tracy, well, actually, Tracy, you're already done. You were next to me. Eric's on the other side. Ingrid, you're underneath me. So go for it.
All right, thanks. I am Ingrid Zabel. I work in non-formal climate education at the Paleontological Research Institution in Ithaca, New York. So I work at our Natural History Museum and Nature Center. One of the things I do also is I curate a clearinghouse for climate change science resources for New York State. So I'm very interested in this topic of data visualizations and tools in case I can maybe learn something about visualizations or tools that I don't know about already. So for the clearinghouse. And I will pass it to Jim.
Great, thanks, Ingrid. So I'm Jim Callahan, Mobile Climate Science Labs, and actually in schools, since I'm a specialist in climate education, I work with many high schools and many middle schools. One, for instance, as you can see, I kind of know where you are, Tracy. I'm somewhat familiar with that place. Lawrence Hall of Science had the NASA-funded Lifelines for high school teachers on climate education. That was back about 10 years ago. And that was one of the first national, supporting and working with high school teachers. And I was the number 2 person in that. So that's an example of getting to work with many different high schools and inside and bringing on the outside. So that's a little introduction on that. So let's see, how about Jen?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Kutzer. I'm the Director of Climate Initiatives at the Wild Center Science Center in Northern New York State, in Tupper Lake. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. We run our youth climate program. We just hit 157 youth climate summits since we started in 2009. And we had over 30 summits last year, which I was pretty excited about. Yeah, we're gearing up to partner again with Climate Gen. I see Seth on the line, and Noah with our teacher programs this summer, our youth leadership retreat that's funded through our Noah project, and a whole pile of other programming, including a food justice summit that's coming up. That's an intergenerational summit that's happening at the Wild Center, and an Adirondack Green Buildings Conference, which is happening at the Wild Center next month. So we have a lot happening. And I'm going to toss it to Seth.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, all. Seth Spencer. I'm an educator for Climate Generation based in Minnesota, and I do teacher professional development around climate change education. And I'll post in the chat one of our workshops coming up in partnership with Dr. Kelly Lee. And then, as Jen said, hosting the 18th Summer Institute for Climate Change Education the week of July 17th through 21st, mostly virtual, but more details will come out about that. And I'll pass it over to Carolyn.
Hi, thanks so much. So I'm Carolyn Burns. My organization's headquarters is in South Florida, but I'm up here in the Tallahassee office. It's called the CLEO Institute. We are a nonprofit focused on climate education and advocacy. I will just be a shameless shill. Our upcoming CLEO Speakers Network program is launching in about a month for the first cohort of this year, where we train basically concerned community members, faith leaders, students, anyone interested in how to talk to, their friends and family about the climate crisis. So yeah, it's Florida focused, but anyone and everyone is welcome. And Emily, have you gone yet? Then in which case, popcorn to you.
Perfect, thanks. My name is Emily Snowd-Brenneman. I'm with UCAR Center for Science Education. UCAR is University Corporation for Atmospheric Research. We are based in Boulder, Colorado. Our group, we focus on really just bringing the science of our NCAR scientists, which is the National Center for Atmospheric Sciences, to basically to life. We do tours at our facility in Boulder, which is at the Mesa Lab, which is behind me, a photo behind me. And then we also create curricula. We also create just activities, and we have a wealth of resources on our website, and we do climate, weather, sun and space weather, atmosphere, so geosciences basically, and earth system sciences. And let's see, who has not gone yet? Frank Leopold, I believe you haven't gone.
Yeah, no, happy to be with you all. So much is going on. It's good stuff. So I'm at NOAA's Climate Program Office, and I represent climate education, climate literacy, climate training, climate workforce at NOAA, 17 agencies and departments, and national partnerships across the nation, and also some international work. So, so much to talk about. But one of the things we're most excited about and spending a whole lot of time on the federal side getting ready for is opening up Climate Literacy Guide 3.0 very soon. You'll be hearing official words about all this by the end of February. That's this month. So I'll just say from 2009, when we did this last, it's a whole lot more process, legal and bureaucratic process than it was back then. So expect to see lots of very official process soon. But the key is to capture all the things that have changed in our field from 2009 to now. Just let's go back on the Wayback Machine. Youth showed up in a much more powerful way. Justice, equity, jobs, action, solutions, and there's another one that showed up, and we were just talking about this in the federal meeting. That is not really well captured in the document. The images are out of alignment. The science is out of alignment. The focus is out of alignment. So this process between March and May is where the inputs from the public will come in. So get your inputtiness ready, please. We need everyone, and it'll be all documented and voyable and fun. Oh, who hasn't gone? Lynn, have you gone yet? Crystal, have you gone? Let's go with Crystal. Sorry, Lynn, if you were popping off of mute slowly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal Noiser. This is my first time on one of these calls. I recently joined the listserv, so I'm really happy to be here. I'm the Associate Director of the Climate Pathways Project at MIT, but I work remotely here in Washington, D.C. And we use the En-ROADS Climate Solutions Simulator to advance the adoption of evidence-based policy among decision makers in government and business and civil society. So if you're familiar with En-ROADS, our partner Climate Interactive uses it really broadly, starting at middle school, and does teacher trainings and K through 12 and all of that. But we use it for adults and decision makers. So that's the kind of the target audience for our project. And I will pass it over to Lynn.
Yes, hey everybody. I don't know what's going on with my video, so I'll just keep going. I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. I work with a GED program that's run by my church. We're looking for opportunities to incorporate climate education as part of our GED prep. And so that's what attracted me to this group. And I have to tell you, I've been spending a lot of time going through the different resources and links that you all have shared, and it is just so exciting. And so I'm really looking forward to pulling together some lessons to be able to share as part of my class, but also with some of my colleagues who are teaching ABE and GED classes too.
I don't think that Lisa's gone yet. I don't know if she's in a spot where she can unmute.
Hi, I can speak. I am Lisa Maroon. I'm not with anyone but myself. I've done a lot of contract work in the environmental arena for a couple of decades, including a lot of work for an environmental law firm where we worked on climate action plans for cities and counties. So I work on a lot of different environmental issues, mostly doing research and outreach, and clearly climate change comes up a lot. I've been part of this group for years, but don't make a lot of the meetings. I love the network, the support that you guys give, and even though I don't come to the meetings a lot, I do actively share a lot of what you guys present and have contributed kind of on an individual level, communicated with a lot of people here. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to our conversation.
Great. I think, and Katie, did you have a chance? And Gina, did you?
Go ahead, Katie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Boyd. I am the Clean Program Manager. So I help manage a lot of the side of Clean, where we have the collection of resources, our database and review process for including those resources into our database, and do educator support and guidance and things of that nature. And then we also have the Clean Network here. And Gina's taken over a lot of the coordination of that, but I'm still involved. And I'm based at the University of Colorado at a NOAA cooperative institute called CERES, the Cooperative Institute for Research and Environmental Sciences, and their education and outreach group. And so I do Clean mostly, but then I also do some work on some of our other projects, doing research and evaluation on educational projects. So yeah, great I'm excited for the conversation today. We have a great group here, and I'm excited about all of that. So I'll pass it off to Gina.
Yeah, I'm Gina. I'm the Clean Program Coordinator. I know most of you, but yes, I work with Katie at CERES, but I work remotely from Vermont, and I'm just excited to have you all here. Colleen just joined, so I'll give her the chance to quickly introduce herself. then I want to have time for announcements. We'll do those really quick because there's good discussion that needs to happen. So let Colleen go.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Colleen Fisk. I'm the Education Director for the nonprofit Renewable Energy Alaska Project, joining from Denina Elena up here outside of Wasilla, Alaska. And our bus drivers are on strike right now, so I'm just driving home from dropping my stepdaughter off at school. So I'll be listening in safely from the car.
Great, and I think we got everybody. If anybody was missed, please just throw your hand up or jump in. But I think we wanted to leave a little space, like Gina had mentioned, for announcements. So any events or other things that anyone would like to share.
Sorry, Eric, I already announced. I pre-announced.
No problem. Jim, go ahead, and then we'll go to Katie.
Well, let me go. I think Katie got.
Oh, sure, yeah, sure.
Right.
So,
Oh, it doesn't matter. Mine, you all know mine. We're doing the Clean Webinar series. I'll just be real quick. So that's still going. We have another one on Thursday this week, and then 2 more in the next couple of weeks. So spread the word. The one this week is partnered with the Understanding Global Change Project and Jessica Bean, and talking about systems thinking when educating about climate. So that should be a really good one. I'll throw the link in the chat, or Gina already did. Thanks. And I will say that some folks did already announce some of their stuff in their discussions or introductions as well. And I feel like there was at least one link to the summit, but I know some folks came in late. So anything you linked earlier, I'll just throw out there. If you don't have to make your announcement again, but you can always put it in the chat. Okay.
Great. So let's see, the one I'll focus on today is in the realm of summer camps. I don't know if the one I'm going to say is the first summer camp on climate action, but I think it probably qualifies as the first major, larger one. Montgomery County, the largest county in Maryland, and the one that's just north of DC, the park system is quite substantial and very developed. There will be a climate action summer camp. And it's actually the person overseeing it is my fellow mentor of Climate Club, who is now working for the Montgomery County Parks. It's Liz Bullock. It sold out, or it got filled up in less than a day. So if anyone, we have 1,000 examples of how it's young people, especially young women, young people of color, who are the most enthusiastic about doing things on climate change. And I think, collectively, we have a major role in making sure that they are not kept out and are included. And just another testimony to it by the summer camp that's taking off. Hopefully it will help to engender summer camps all over the country. Thank you.
Frank, go ahead. Frank G.
Okay, couple of quick announcements here. First of all, about an event that has already come and gone, but it was kind of exciting because it relates to a discussion I'm hoping to have with this group in terms of engaging with the next COP remotely. I'm on the board for Creation Justice Program at Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon. And we just finished last Sunday our 10th annual Earth Care Climate Summit. And it was done very differently this year, it was not in one places, but 8 simultaneously. And the first half of it, there was some state programming that was virtually connected. And then followed after that local programming. A really excellent model that I'm hoping to talk more about in a discussion in this group about remote connections. And the other thing, Eric, I really like the fact you brought up the question of visualization as far as this informal. So what I did, a lot of you have already seen this, the climate toolkit is now in its second version and I'm looking at soon going to its third version. So one of the things I'm really kind of keen to listen to today is what kinds of thoughts folks have about some of these visualizations. So anyway, enough said.
Great. Thanks so much, Frank. And Jen.
Yeah, just quickly, this is actually happening this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern time. We have our monthly Youth Climate Summit network meeting. It's open to everybody. If you're interested in planning summits or like thinking about it or whatever, today's topic is focusing on tracking climate action projects. And we have speakers from the Columbus Zoo's Teen Eco Summit and also New York City's Office of Sustainability from their summits. And I'll put the link in the chat. Thanks.
Great. Thanks so much, Jen and Crystal.
Our partner Climate Interactive, who uses the tools very broadly, they do monthly just open public workshops with the tools. So if you've never seen it and you've never experienced it, the next one is next Thursday. They offer them at 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. so they can get people from all across the world. And I will drop that in the chat as well.
Great. Thanks so much, Crystal. And I've been taking some quick notes on folks, which I'll share out as a PDF at the end of the meeting, just for all these great resources. I know this is all recorded just for especially folks that are new, for Lisa, Lynn, and Tracy in particular. So you can always watch these webinars later. And just as a way of kind of moving into our topic, if it looks like everyone's good with announcements, kind of a way to segue into that. The thought today that I had in sort of suggesting this was an initial conversation about visualization tools and resources. And then maybe we could think about sort of more deliberate follow-up if there's explicit kinds of tools, because when we think about tools, there's the actual animations and recreations and stills and just how we kind of tell the story about climate through different multimedia. But there's also the tools of creating visualizations and students using them. And so Tracy and I just connected at a environmental justice and climate change workshop on Saturday as part of an Oakland initiative called OTACA, Oakland Teachers Advancing Climate Action. And she delivered a session, which I'll let her speak to, and Tracy is maybe a starting point, but was really how to use and understand visualizations. And I think it was really, Tracy, I really enjoyed it. It was really well done. So would love to just have you share a few words about that. And then in the interest of giving voice to new folks on the call, you know, Lynn and Lisa in particular, since it's my first time seeing you here, and I think you expressed maybe your first time here, would love to hear a little bit more about kind of, Lynn, what you mentioned about seeing some of the resources, because as you probably have discovered, there's somewhere around 1,000 vetted lessons on the CLEAN website, which are really powerful ways to reach K-12 audiences and students, and even college level students and folks that are interested. So would really love to hear more from you and Lisa, anything in particular that the collective team can speak to. And then just jumping in on, after Tracy and the two of you could share your thoughts, just jumping in on conversation. So, so I'll turn it over to Tracy.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Yeah, so since I work in the K-12 space, I'm all about the data, so to speak, with our students that we work with. And one thing just came really apparent when we all went to remote instruction. We had a lot of data visuals that were thrown at us daily, whether we were online or whether we were watching TV. And so that really got me thinking about these data visualizations and how many of us really don't understand that which is we're looking at. And so kind of parlaying that down to K-12 ed, my desire is to, you know, really work with youth, because I think youth are afraid of graphs. I think it's very intimidating to them. And I think there's just a wall that comes up, you know, when someone just gives them a graph and they have to make sense of the data looking at the graph. So I think there's a series of exercises, lessons, support tools that we can give our K-12 through those times that really makes graphs not intimidating. It makes them feeling comfortable enough to tell a story from those graphs to analyze the data and then ultimately interpret that data for a cause and action that they want to take. So that's just my background, and I think that's kind of where we were at on our discussion on Saturday, is really talking about tools. Is that okay, Eric?
Yeah, that's great, Tracy. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
And there was one that was really fun. I think was it called Charty Party?
Oh yeah. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard. You can Google Charty Party. Charty Party is a actually, I'll tell you two resources. One is a Charty Party game. You can just purchase it, and it's really about, they give you an x-axis, but you have to ask the students what the y-axis might be. And they're just fun, non-intimidating, very creative kind of opportunities. And the second resource I'll share with you is dataspire.org, dataspire.org. Kristen Hunter Thompson has been doing data literacy for a number of years, professional development for teachers, and she is the person who got me interested and aware of all the complexities and challenges that data literacy brings to our students. And she's got a lot of great resources and tools on her website.
Great, thanks so much for sharing those. And yeah, I had a lot of fun. So I just can't speak. I speak volumes for Tracy, what you're doing, and also your experience as a longtime high school teacher. Just, you know, the blend of what you're doing now with Globe and the visualization stuff was great. And yeah, I just want to invite Crystal as well as three of our sort of new time participants. Anything that, you know, especially around this topic, that was intriguing to you, or that you're sort of looking for resources on, or thinking about using tools?
Yeah, it's interesting what Tracy said about the graphs and understanding the graphs, because we use hundreds and hundreds of them that you can choose from in our simulator. And it's the same for adults. We always say, like, a really great facilitator is always going to make sure that they understand the X and the Y axis and what they're, you know, what type of graph that they're looking at. So the same goes for adults. Doesn't get any easier if you don't have a good facilitator teaching how to read graphs. We use a lot of different visualizations outside of just different types of graphs. We use some around impacts, and one of the unique features that we have, which I think we want to do more of if we have access to additional global data sets that could do this sort of work for us. But the En-ROAD simulator is, and I'll drop that in the chat too, so you can just check it out on your own. It's free and accessible, and anyone can use it at any time. But it's the only simulator that can calculate visualization of sea level rise instantaneously based on policy or actions that you want to take. So you plug in the action that you want to take, and it, you know, lickety split changes the maps, the sea level rise maps, to show how much land that you were able to save by taking those actions. So there are big simulators that are not publicly accessible that you could do that kind of work with. You'd have to like plug in the scenario, and it would have to run overnight, and you'd have to know someone who knows someone. But like, this is the only one that can do that. And that's really, really popular, that feature for our facilitators. People love that visualization. So I'm just trying to figure out how we can do more of that sort of stuff, and what sort of global data sets. Like, for example, we'd love to be able to localize air pollution impacts. We can chart them globally, but to be able to show how policy decisions could change air pollution at the community level would be amazing. So just trying to learn about what resources are out there for that sort of stuff.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Again, Lynn or Lisa, anything you wanted to add? And Lynn, what you're working with your faith group, and anything else that you're sort of intrigued by?
I can speak really quickly. It's actually, I might have misrepresented myself. It's not my first time at a meeting. I used to come a lot. I just don't have that much time anymore. In fact, there was I was on a committee with Jim Callahan and a few other people a few years ago that kind of fizzled out. But yeah, no, I am very familiar with, I mean, I look at all of my emails that come in, and like I said, I've been part of this group for a few years now. It's just my work has not let me participate in these kinds of meetings. I love the resources that you have, and I straddle a lot of different divides. I'm not just a climate change educator, so this is why I guess I haven't been able to get to as many of these meetings as I like, but I do integrate climate, not for me, it's not just about climate change education. Climate change needs to be, I think, in everyone's minds in everything they do every day. So for me, it's not just about how do I teach about climate change. It's about just how do I communicate with everybody every day, and how do I go about my own personal business in a way that I can serve as a good example, and how do I integrate what I know about climate change, and how do I integrate conversations about climate change in all of these other things that I'm doing, you know? So even though climate change is not my focus, I try to bring it into everything that I do, just because for me, everything's about the environment and nature. So, and when I over 20 years ago, my dissertation in graduate school, I was in an environment and conservation program, was about environmental justice. And that was a time when no one was talking about it. And so, you know, there are a lot of things that are coming up right now that have been a big part of what has been on my mind. And I've been carrying out in my actions as a person on a personal level and a professional level. And so I guess that's where I'm coming from. I'm not here looking for a specific resource or anything. I'm just here to support and cheer on, and to say, I appreciate everything everyone's doing, and any resource that does pop up or anything I hear about, I will Google and try to support in any way I can, as I always have. So thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Lisa. And before we jump to the hands up, Lynn, anything you wanted to share or ask?
Great. No questions. I can just certainly say that I do appreciate it. Is a lot of information, and it's a little overwhelming, but it's exciting. And so I'm really taking the time to go through it. I could really relate to what Crystal was saying in terms of the graphs on the GED exam. That is probably one of the most difficult things that our adult learners have to grapple with, and wanting to be able to offer the opportunity to keep them grounded in what they need to know for the GED exam, but also creating a more broader life experience and helping them understand this whole concept of lifelong learning, and making the connections like Lisa talked about in terms of not just learning for learning's sake, but learning as part of a lifestyle, and finding, for me, those entry points where it makes sense for our adult learners. Many of them are living environmental injustice issues, but they don't necessarily know the language to phrase it. And so it's a great opportunity to be able to put into practice and to make the connections for them. I not only teach for my church, but I also teach for some other adult literacy programs in the city. And I'm also part of a regional professional association for adult educators. And we have our conference coming up, and I'm thinking about submitting a workshop around the whole teacher ambassador that you all do. And so I'm really thinking about how to connect that with some other adult educators that I work with.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing that, Lynn. I think two things that resonated with me that you mentioned. One was this idea of lifelong learning. And so many of us during COVID, I think, had to make various pivots and adjust. And I know personally, I engaged in a lot of that, and that's how I discovered the Clean Network, was because of that, and wanting to reach out to more folks doing great work, and bumped into old colleagues as a result, like Jim Callahan and Jen Crester, who are on the call today. So really, silver lining to COVID. And then the environmental justice workshop work in particular, I think we've been discussing a lot, and a lot of the programs I've been working on in the last couple of years have really centered that, and really been about uplifting voices and enabling and empowering and just listening, to a much broader kind of cohort of folks that are involved in this space. So I appreciate you doing that work and uplifting that conversation today. So I'm going to just kind of go in order of the hands that I see that are up. Carolyn, do you want to share?
Oh, I just, this is going back to what Crystal was talking about, looking for localized air quality data. If any of you remember the presentation I gave back in November, we kind of did a project that was very much about citizen science and air quality data. So I'm gonna, yeah, we'll talk later, sort of one-on-one, so we don't sort of take over the meeting, but yeah.
And Frank Diepold?
Sure. So I love this topic. And, you know, at NOAA, I was at NASA for 10 years before I came over to NOAA. And, you know, we used to think access to data was really what people wanted. And the amount of time we used to spend helping people get access to data and then learn the tools and techniques on how to use it just chewed up all the curriculum time before we even got into any analysis or questions or what to do as a result of it. I mean, and what we've been doing over the years, now I'm at 17 years at NOAA and then 10 years at NASA, is a lot of the analytic tools are actually embedded in the data browsers. And so some of the projects that I put up there for you, whether it's the NOAA Sea Level Rise Viewer, which continues to be iterated and improved, lots of new functions are in the same tool, right? So like socializing a new tool or a new technique or a new data set, it's always in one tool over and over again, which is one of the advents of how we work digitally now. The camera project or the Climate Explorer, pushing the analytic tools and into a dynamic place. But ultimately, at the end of the day, which question you're trying to get access to is premium. The amount of people who call me up out of the blue and say, you know, for something else, and like, oh, by the way, I just bought a house. Should I have bought that house? And I'm like, did you use the NOAA Sea Level Rise Viewer? And they're like, the what? And then we go there and we look at it and they're like, oh, probably shouldn't have done that. Right. And so, I mean, this gets really practical when I'm thinking about you and some of the real practical applications people have, because this can get really heady, really complicated, really fast. At the end of the day, depending on what questions are driving people, what tool, which data, which purpose, and can you find it in time? And do you understand how to, like that little bar that you move up and down on the Sea Level Rise Viewer? How high should you make that go? You know, we've done some things to make that better, but like that, just think about that as an educator, as a student, as a citizen. Like it's not just the tool and which one, and is it trustworthy and is it current? It's also, how do I use this to answer my question in a skillful way? So I'm just, you know, Crystal, I'm imagining some of the ways you interpret and facilitate meetings. Something like that is going on, and many other people in here. How you do it is also as important as which tool, which data, as well. So, but we've been pushing most of that into the browser, so it's dynamic. And that's just, you know, another piece of the work we've been doing.
Great, thanks for those great resources, Frank. And again, I'll shoot a PDF with a lot of these links that I've been sort of on the fly grabbing from the chat. But Jim Callahan.
Great, thanks, Eric. I want to bring up something that, so we know that this is possible, and then what happens when you do it, as even if it's a very small part when we're talking visualizations. Students can use visualizations to take action on climate change, not only to learn about what climate change does and the effect on it, but they are taking action with visualizations. Okay, now I'll give an example of that. But when they are that motivated and know that they can take action on climate change and regard education as another form of action that they take, okay, then they become teachers. Our students are spreading out all over the area. Every time they leave one of our middle schools, they go to a high school, and that spreads out, and they become the teacher on climate change. They're the main teacher now, and the science teachers are learning from them, right? It keeps spreading, and then they're using Clean, and then they're using Globe, and then they're using En-ROADS, right? They're using all this material, but when you cycle it as climate change is not this, you know, it's basically you're learning about cancer, which you're going to get, and there's nothing you can do about it. right? I mean, that's a whole different realm of, I'm not only studying medicine, but I'm a doctor now. I'm a nurse, I'm a practitioner, I'm doing things, I'm motivated, I'm doing these things. So the example that we deliberately developed to be proof that this could happen, and then to be experiment what happens when students have this tool, is the ability to visualize the energy usage of any building in the United States. Any building. Our students are in schools, they're at the US Capitol, they're in the museums. In California, they're looking at UC Berkeley's energy consumption, which is very good in terms of efficiency. But they're looking at the NASA Ames Visitor Center, which is actually loaded with incandescents. And they're finding where they are, right? They're spotting them out. So they're actually making these differences. But the difference of when we allow students to take action on climate change rather than make climate change basically, which a lot of students, the way they hear it is, you're telling me how I'm going to die. You're telling me how everything I know is going to be despoiled. And you're telling me there's nothing I can do about it. Instead, they're doing something about it. So anyway, I just want to kind of see if we can include that when we talk about visualization of climate change, visualizing taking action. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's, I'm going to jump back to Frank Niepold, and then I had a couple of thoughts I might share on that too. Frank, go ahead.
So some of us in this call were in a climate education and God, I can't remember the rest of the name, Jen, the summit in Utah. And we were
no idea.
I'll find the link. It's a goodie. It's an oldie but a goodie. But we convened a lot of leaders in climate education who were federally funded, non-federally funded, of all forms, plus communities that were leading in climate action, and combine them together and really talk through how does what we do help them what they're trying to do specifically. And one of the things that came through in one of the conversations very loudly was, this came from Somerville, Massachusetts, actually, was we're doing a lot of amazing, important climate work, not just planning, but actually implementing solutions to deal with vulnerabilities or transitioning to a low carbon economy, you name it, right? But we have a very hard time making that visible. Most of that work is invisible to people. And so as we're talking about data visualization, one of the things, to pick up your point, Jim, right now, you cannot see the vast majority of climate solutions that are already in place. They're invisible to people. If we don't make those visible, they'll miss where we are in the story. They'll think we need to begin. We're way beyond beginning, or we're not at the end. That data has to be prioritized of what data we need to visualize. Or else, how many electric cars are in your community? Which metros, come on now, it's more than 5, Jen. But like just that question, like how much of the electricity that's coming into your community is coming from a carbon-based source or from a renewable source, or you name it, right? All of those things are invisible to us. And until we make those visible, I think if I had to prioritize any visualization to visualize, it would be what solutions are actually, where are we on the arc of this transformation?
Yeah, I think those are really great ideas. And just to kind of recap some of the thinking that I've been hearing from everyone, one is this idea that part of using visualization is like our youth, especially envisioning a positive future. We're used to the post-apocalyptic kind of climate change narrative, but so much lately has been pivoting to this idea of how do we create a positive future, and what does that actually look like? And then how do we build towards that? So, and as to speak to what Jim and some of the rest of you were saying, action is so tied to that, because that is what catalyzes action is this idea of, I want to get to that future and I'm making it happen, and I actually am doing it. Even a second grader in an urban garden, or a fifth grader bicycling to school, they're actually helping solve the climate crisis right there. And sometimes they feel like I'm just this little kid and I can't do anything, right? But there's so much, and it's the way we describe that narrative. And then sort of looping back to some of the resources that some of you shared around communication. Effective visualizations are really about how do we use these powerful tools like video and images to express the concept in a way that's digestible to the average person, right? Because we can get lost in climate ease or science talk, but if we don't know the audience and we don't leverage the tools in the right way or in the most powerful way, we lose an opportunity, right? So I wanted to share one thing. I think, Gina, can I share screen? I'm not sure if that's enabled, but wanted to share one. Is that cool? Can you all see this? So this is a fledgling website that I'm working with a small team on. And the idea is to tell the story about California's drought. Luckily, we're in this atmospheric river situation and our reservoirs are filling up in the last couple of months, which is awesome. But again, there's a climate story behind rivers and this sort of glut of moisture coming in. But this idea that here's an image from NOAA about the drought monitor pre-rivers, right? But I can imagine that there are a ton of other visualizations, including animations, that unpack this story, right? That NOAA has available, that NASA has available, and others. And so the idea with this website is to kind of uplift stories about what I've coined our climate brothers and sisters. So California has 4 other analogs across the world that have wet winters, cool wet winters, and warm dry summers. All of us experiencing these climate kind of extreme events, wildfires, water shortages, and things like that. And then in particular, speaking to some of the uplifting stories and understanding what's happening across the globe, there are so many communities across the globe taking action from diverse backgrounds. So what's happening in Oakland? And so been working on a lot of school projects, garden projects in particular, but Cape Town, South Africa, similarly, water shortages almost hit day 0. Perth, the wildfires in Australia, throughout Southern Australia, Valparaiso, Chile, droughts, that they're in the middle of epic droughts as well. Same climate as we have in California, same effects, same impacts. Where COP27 took place, Sharm el-Sheikh is in the Mediterranean basin, as is Naples, Florida, also experiencing rapid climate change, wildfires, water shortages. So the idea would be to use this narrative as a context to uplift stories. And but what I'm hoping to do is incorporate powerful visualizations. And Wendy Abshire is not on the call today, but she works with the American Meteorological, just retired from AMS. But there's such an opportunity with newscasters in the weather to kind of, and PBS does a good job of this, to incorporate climate information behind the weather. So I could imagine this having that kind of impact at something that we watch every day. So anyway, I just wanted to share that as one example of a way to use visualizations that I'm hoping to sort of do in a more powerful way, and then to uplift stories from around the globe as a way to kind of, again, help us recognize that we're not alone in the struggle, right? We're all together. And this is one group, one cluster of folks that actually have a similar climate, but you could imagine rainforests and, groups doing it, or the Arctic region is experiencing more rapid climate change than others, for example. Also kind of unifying, sharing best practice, and already are, certainly. And then, or these models, being kind of then pushed out and amplified and expanded. So I'm going to jump back over to Frank N.
That's a legacy hand, sorry.
No problem, thank you. Any other thoughts, ideas, interest, follow-up? Gina and Katie are very receptive at Clean to, we have some topics defined for the year and facilitator defined, but there's some open space. So if there's a particular area of tools and visualization that are attractive or interesting, please suggest that to the network. And I think we could find and collect more specific resources, whether it be teaching about how, like Tracy does, how to use visualization tools and graphs, or the actual tools themselves that a lot of you have shared, both resources in the chat today. Frank G, and then Frank N.
Okay. So this is just a question. Some time ago, there was a group from UNESCO in Paris that were doing something very similar to the Clean Collection. And has anyone heard any more from them? I had emailed them a while ago trying to get more information on their project, and it seemed to fall into deaf ears. I'm just wondering, particularly in light of what you're doing, Eric, in terms of making these sister brother connections, they just seem like a good resource, but I don't know where they are.
Yeah, so you're kind of a little bit wayfinding. Is that what you're asking, Frank?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if anyone else here has heard any more from them since they presented sometime last year.
We should follow up with them, Frank. We should definitely follow up with them. I'm going to put a link into the
With
chat.
who? I'm sorry, I was typing. Who were you asking about, Frank?
It was there is a climate education group that's coming out of UNESCO Paris that sometime last year they did a presentation, and I did follow up with them to send out an email, but it sort of fell into email vacuum. And I'm just
Yeah, it'd
wondering.
be worth following up. Sorry, I have not heard from them either. So I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure that I wasn't, I had heard from somebody and just not listening at the moment. So yeah, no, I haven't. It'd be worth following up. I agree with Frank.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I actually had a meeting with a woman from Nova, WGBH Nova. She's recently retired, and she was supporting a climate video production piece. And when we were talking, I said, like, one of the things you should do, and Katie, I sent you the link to that the other day, to consider for the Clean Review. In the Clean process, we have a Clean Review camp coming up in probably May, June, May. Now we have
We're
an
going
answer.
for May this year.
May. We're going for May. But right now, Katie and her team are building the collection of things to consider putting into the Clean camp. This call, one thing, if you have some amazing tools that you think, you know what, that visualization should be there, go to the Clean collection. If it's not in there, you can use the link or you can send it to Katie, you can send it to me, you can send it to Gina. Sorry, Gina. It gets same door, different door, same room. But we'll put it in the collection because it's how we build coherence in this work, and it's how we elevate excellent work. And the Clean collection is a dynamic collection. Things come in, come out for a variety of reasons. But if you're not putting new things in, we're just slowly losing things. They're broken, they're scientifically out of date for whatever reason. But we want to promote the best resources. I mean, I think, Katie, you put in here's where they all are in the collection, but you can also add things. I know World Climate is in there, as one powerful education visualization tool. But let's keep pumping the collection full of new awesome stuff. More comes in every year. Let's make sure the best stuff is in there.
All the En-ROADS are in there. We have a lot of UCAR in there. I mentioned the King's Center for Visualization and Science, another good resource. We have a lot of their resources. Concord Consortium has some good data visualization resources.
Maybe NOAA.
NOAA has a bunch.
NOAA?
We have a bunch of NOAA stuff.
NOAA? You mean these guys, Frank?
Yeah. I will just mention though, Frank, that because the camp is coming up in May, we're trying to get all the review done by March because it takes a little while to set up the camp. So I've actually filled up. I have like over 90 resources that we are currently working on reviewing because it goes through 2 rounds of review before the review camp. So it takes several months. Yeah, because all of our review stuff, reviewers, they do it on their own time. They're usually otherwise, have full-time jobs, and they do this on the side in a lot of cases. So it takes us a little while to get through everything, especially when there's a large pool like this year with 90 resources going through. So yeah, I'm pretty well full for this year. So just kind of clarifying, anything you give me now will go into next year's review cycle. But
Unless
I did
it's
have those
awesome.
ones that you had sent me, Frank. Those were already in there. The videos were, at least, so we can link to those. I sent you an email this morning about that. But yeah,
Fantastic.
just clarifying to everybody else, if you do send me an email, I will send you we'll put it in next year.
There you go, Katie.
I know we're coming up on time. I want to give Frank G just some last thoughts, and anyone else, and then I just a couple closing thoughts for everybody.
I think what I'll do is lower my hand. Yeah, go right ahead.
Well, no, thanks again for great conversation. And again, really, please take to heart the idea of a follow-up and a more specific area. And I think, you know, the notes I captured I missed the last 10 minutes of chat. But, you know, these are recorded for the new folks that are on the call. Just a couple call outs. Lisa, you texted me directly, chatted me directly about ArcGIS, and I totally agree. And I'm familiar with the platform. I'm learning it. And it's a great also tool to tell a comprehensive story that you can put text, you can put embedded video, images, hyperlinks. So it's kind of like an online blog tool almost, and maps, and it's based in maps. So it's a really great tool. And the last thing, if you're in the Bay Area, Chabot Space and Science Center is doing a quarter of climate-themed programming, both for student and public-facing events, April through June. And it was just a reminder to me that dome spaces, both like planetarium dome spaces and then the Science on a Sphere, are both really nice sort of three-dimensional visualization tools. And so that could be an area that we could drill down on in future calls. Just that alone, there's a ton there. And I think that space, since I've been aware of it, has evolved dramatically. So there might be something on that. But thanks everyone for great conversation. Hope to see some of the new folks again. Don't stay new, become part of the team. And thanks everyone for a good conversation.
Thanks,
so
Eric.
much.
Thanks, everyone. And
Yeah,
Eric, just noting, if you missed any of the chat, we do save the chat and we try to post it with the recordings as well. So
Great. Thanks, Katie. Awesome. All right.
Thank you, Eric. Really
Thank
appreciate
you, Eric.
it.
Sure. Thanks all.
Thank you.